Zelensky coming out in an interview with Fox News talking about that nobody needs Avdiivka. If that was the case, why they were sacrificing too much in Avdiivka?
Clearly, within Ukraine, there's two schools of thought. One school of thought is that we have to fight for every square inch. We have to show the West that we won't surrender, that their investments are not in vain. The other school of thought is we have limited resources. We should not sacrifice these resources needlessly, that we should pull back, shorten our lines, consolidate our reserves, things of that nature. Zelensky is of the former. He was hold on to every square inch, attack, attack, attack. But now when confronted with the disaster of that decision, he seeks to spin it away. Zelensky has never cared about a single Ukrainian soldier. If he had, he would have made peace back in March, April of 2022. But he's shown that he doesn't care about Ukrainian soldiers or the Ukrainian people. He only cares about Zelensky. Zelensky's status as, because to continue this conflict, he was elevated to the modern day Winston Churchill. I mean, Zelensky is the ultimate narcissist. He was told that he's somebody great. He's a historical figure. And now he must have Ukrainian men, Ukrainian women in increasing numbers die to sustain this fiction that has been created by, once again, the Western mainstream media.
The German finance minister recently said that they're having a lot of difficulties in maintaining 2% of their GDP for the defense budget. And at the same time, you see they're trying to escalate the situation in Ukraine.
Talk is cheap. There's a lot of talk, but putting action behind the words, that's where it gets expensive. And the observations of the German finance minister are apt. Germany's economy is in the tanks. Porsche is shutting down its manufacturing plant in Germany and taking it to the United States. Other industries have done the same. There is no heavy industry in Germany anymore. It's collapsing as we speak. It's deindustrializing in front of us. A deindustrialized Germany with an economy in recession is in no position to allocate 2% of gross domestic product or more to military adventures. Nobody in Europe is in a position to do this. I feel sorry for the Swedish people because by joining NATO, they have bankrupted themselves. They've guaranteed themselves to be in decades of economic decline because they will be called upon to invest into a military machine that cannot succeed in what.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'll try to get Ham on early, but he's tied up, but I'll try to get him on so that you're not bored. And that's that. We can go. Let me go quickly through some. Well, one thing I want to call everybody's attention to. Dennis Neal on his What's Bugging Me podcast. I don't know what to call it. He interviewed Anna, Queen of Trades, and that's going to be out today. And I strongly recommend listening to it. I hear he did a great job. And of course, she continues her hard work to get a victory here for everyone. So that's on What's Bugging Me on Ricochet. All right, so ZJYL is 629, up 27 cents. Let me see if I have some quick quotes. CELU did a reverse merger. A reverse split. Sorry about that. Reverse split. So it's down. Fingers down slightly. HNRC is down quite a bit on the bid. It's the bid is 0.0135. They have 25,000 for sale at 0.0165. if I'm right, that's going to look cheap. The problem is, he might have done a toxic financing, That's how the stock's trading. And I have no way of knowing that. So that's the risk. But boy, 1.5 pennies for a stock that might pay out a dividend of 5 or 10 cents. I don't know. I can't explain it. Logic is, to me, also cheap, 2.5 cents. At some point, we're going to hear a reverse merger candidate allegedly worth 60 cents a share. The risks are, do they need financing and they'll make a bad decision and go to a criminal? Is the valuation believable? And timing. If it's a non-definitive agreement, how long does it take to become definitive and for what reason? But I don't know. It just seems very cheap to me. T-low hits a new low. It's at 879. Monday is the end of the investment banking quiet period. Maybe there's news next week. GDC, my word is that the stock's 208. That's down for many of you, but I understand that could start to show some strength as soon as next week. And ZJYL 639. That's relatively, oh gosh, I might have to sign off. I forgot I have a museum opening to go to. Well, anyway, let's go. Let me see when I have to be there. All right, we can go until 2:00, and then when I come back, we can start again. So no ham until then, because I've got to sign off at 2 and be on the road. So sorry, that's my scheduling mistake. Schedule. I forgot what I was saying. GDC, I think could be strong next week, and of course ZJYL will move with GDC. It's the I got to get the name correct. It's the Phillips Museum. I wanted to say Corcoran, but that's been shut. Yeah, I used to be on the board of a museum, but I aged out of it, I guess. Hey, Amby. Hello, son. Queen of my double wide. I used to live in a double wide. Brand new one. Brand new one. What's going on with Wolf? What do you think's going on with Wolf? What do you think's going on with Wolf? Can you say Yorkville Advisors? Can you say CEOs shouldn't do business with Yorkville Advisors? AKYP, pretty young thing. When do I expect the housing market to crash? I think the housing market is not a monolith. I think it's an amazing question because it means you're trying to think ahead. I spoke to a friend of mine last night, a woman, and she got a little annoyed with me when I pointed out that in DC, where I live, women are buying houses. Well, why shouldn't they? It used to always be men, and now women are getting their chance. All right, got it, got it. But I think women make different financial decisions than men do. And that's both good and bad. Um, uh, it's both good and bad. There's a reason why when men get into financial difficulties, they turn to a woman that they're close with. Because women don't take the same level of risks or they don't gun it for returns. But women don't have to provide for men. Women don't have to make money to get a man. Men to be successful on all aspects of life, including mating and, if you want to be blunt, potentially having their genes follow on. They got to make money. So they gun it a little bit. They risk it a little bit. And but and I don't know if I'm right, Bill. I don't know if I'm right. But I think one of the things women do as investors is they play it safe and they go with the crowd. And who can blame them? I mean, I'm not trying to say anything wrong, but here in DC, women make the money, particularly in the younger generations. They have the good jobs and the good future incomes. Well, what's wrong with that? Men used to have, okay, I got it. I'm not trying to make a political statement. I'm just trying to see what's right in front of me. So here in DC, high income women, young, are buying houses. They're buying houses. Are they wrong? They might be. They might be. But I don't think so because I think they'll live there and they'll ride out what comes. And I think DC is a unique city in that, like London, it's a powerful city. And as long as you buy within the Beltway, they're not making any more land. And I also believe we're going to war. And so I think there's going to be an influx of people coming in to Washington, D.C. So I think in this area, I'm just not sure there is going to be a crash. There is a lot of inventory, though, Bill. There is massive amount of inventory, absolutely massive. And I think it's the hedge funds buying up properties and turning them into rentals at a high rent because hedge funds are stupid. They can't really outperform each other. They have to cheat or they have to get into these income streams and essentially make life difficult for the rest of us. So that's DC. Could DC see a collapse? I don't think so. I'm torn on interest rates. I think interest rates could be brought down because of the election and because our economy is actually in trouble. But I also, counterbalancing that, believe that interest rates could go up. Nobody's expecting that. Nobody is expecting interest rates to go up. But we are fighting a battle for the dollar. And countries from Saudi Arabia to China to India, if they see weakness in the dollar, they're not going to do business in the dollar. So I think it's a tug of war. What I hear from people that I totally trust their judgment, interest rates are going down. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. I really am not sure. Because, Bill Cooper, the Fed doesn't really control interest rates long term. They can control the short term and the the what do you call it? The open market, the Fed discount window. They can control that, but they can't. If the broad markets lose confidence in the U.S. Treasury and in the U.S. dollar, and the bond market rolls over like a brontosaurus on top of a domestic pig, the stock market's going to be crushed, and housing will be crushed too. But I think housing in the rest of the country is going to be in trouble. You've got a situation where supposedly there's not enough inventory. Well, I look around, there's plenty of inventory. Problem is people are not deciding to sell because they still believe that a house is an asset that'll go up in value. Well, you've got increasing insurance rates, increasing taxes, and you've got the upkeep. And what's that thing called? The rent by the hour, rent by the night thing, Airbnb. That's not as successful anymore. It is. I don't do it myself, but from what I read, that's not as successful. So I think in the rest of the country, you're going to see prices go down. I think New York City, I wouldn't. Somebody just bought a 30% of an office building for $1 from a Canadian retirement fund. That I don't think that bodes well for, obviously, for commercial real estate, but I don't think it bodes well for housing. My understanding in Florida, outside of certain areas, the inventory is skyrocketing, and so I think prices will come down. There's a stickiness to sellers' expectations, but once they get feared that we shouldn't be in housing, there'll be a lot of selling. So that's not much of an answer. I don't really expect it to crash, unfortunately. I think when it comes down, I don't know what you mean by crash. I think crash, there'll be fewer transactions and the prices will come down. But I think the prices are permanently higher because of the COVID spending and the changes in behavior. I would be worried more about a bond market crash than a housing crash. And to the extent that housing trades like a bond, maybe that'll go down. But that's not much of an answer. When do I expect it? No time soon. I don't think there's going to be a housing crash anytime soon. I'm surprised with my answer. When I started answering your question, I didn't know what my conclusion would be. Let's see what other people say. Builders have not been doing the final inspections on homes. Yeah, there you go. Inventory. And one fix-it man, what I understand goes on with that. You would know better than I do. But what I understand goes on with that is if you have a subdivision and you're building out 100 homes, 150 homes, whatever, and you've borrowed from the bank, you can't let the comp go down. So that's you would rather not sell a house, and in the extreme I'm talking about, not sell a house, keep the price level up here so the bank doesn't essentially give you a margin call. All right, here, let's go with a real estate agent. Supply is near historic lows in most of the country. Demand is still too high relative to supply. I think I came to your conclusion. I might have done it in a meandering way. I don't see a crash coming. I just don't. And I think demand comes from women. When I did real estate, when you saw women, single women in particular, come into a neighborhood, that was a great sign for that neighborhood. Anyway, I think demand is still very strong. I can only talk about this area, but demand is really strong from single women or women with children, or women with a a tag along husband that has some other job. But I just houses here TK16, as soon as they're on the market, 2 days later they're under contract. Boom, under contract. I don't see a crash. Single women buy homes. Yeah, yeah. And it makes sense. Security, independence, and they're making money. When I was talking about it with my friend last night, she took it like I was saying something negative about women. I wasn't. It's just what I see. The house 3 doors down's for sale. I walked Lucky by, 3 women looking at it. One, I think, was the agent, and the other 2 may have been a couple, or maybe they were, you know, sisters, or maybe one was buying it and the other was a friend. But it was women looking, and it's a $5 million house. Well, Spiny, I think I don't know how much time I have left, but I took a course when I went to college called environmental geology. Yeah, environmental geology. And man, that was a course I didn't expect to enjoy, but we had a weird curriculum where you couldn't get a minor, but you did a cone or some crap. I don't know, some Harvard genius came up with it. I wasn't at Harvard. I'm not saying that. I was at the Harvard of the South, or at least that's what they call themselves. Or some call that. I don't know. But what I remember from that is these 100-year floods, 100-year storms happen. And so we as a society have built along the beaches like those storms aren't going to come. And then the government and insurance companies provide insurance, but we're just stepping in front of a known risk. And so that was a long time ago, but I am not surprised that insurance prices have gone up, because we're putting our houses right in front of nature, and nature wins. Other than Father Time, I'm not sure that nature has ever been defeated either. Taxes, that's how Florida makes their money, is on property taxes. I know. Homeowners insurance. The other thing that's coming, Spiny, and you can be upset with the Republicans, but the other thing that will come is higher taxes on houses in blue cities. They gotta pay for their services. Yeah, I think despite what somebody said up here, I think Florida, from what I hear, there's a lot of inventory in Florida, but maybe not in Miami, maybe not in Miami, but there's that disconnect. There's no price discovery because sellers are not willing to realize they waited too long. Well, Mexican, I think Democrats are making a huge mistake. I don't know if you immigrated to the United States or were born here. It doesn't, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. But I think whatever the woke term is, Latinx or Latina or Hispanic or whatever the hell, human beings who come from Central America and South America, Mexico, and have lived here properly, they came in and became citizens. They don't enjoy seeing what's happening. I don't think people here that are looking for jobs, the Democratic constituency is not impressed with this. But I think there's something else going on. In the short run, Democrats are trying to get votes. There's no question about that. Secondly, it may be, and I hate to say this, but it may be other governments. There's a really big one in Asia, have bought and paid for our government, and they want to send people in here to destabilize us. That's possible. But I think a big thing going on, and this is not the right way to do it, because you're seeing like in Ireland, you're seeing a complete turnover of the character of a country there, and it's not safe. I think it has to do with population. Over 50% of the women in the United States, by the time they're 30, have not had a child. We're not replacing our population. And that means if we're going to remain a superpower economically, militarily, et cetera, we've got to get a birth rate from somewhere. That's my opinion. The final thing I think is happening with people coming across the border, that is not my idea, I read it, is demand for the US dollar. We need, what's hard for everyone to understand, to keep the debt-based system going, we have to increase debt. And we're at the point where it's increasing at almost a vertical rate. We also need to make sure the demand for the dollar's there. Well, people come here to work and they send the dollar home instead of their local currency, and that creates demand for the dollar. That might be what's going on too. Of course, Mexico. Of course. Of course. Wouldn't you be mad? I'd be mad. I got mad when I trained at Merrill Lynch. I went through the front door and went through the battery of exams. A guy who's become a friend of mine, my girlfriend gave him all the tests and told him what he had to do, and he got in. Let me just see. Hello. Not much. I'm live, but I have to turn off in 15 minutes and then come back on. I have to meet. I have to go to I have a museum opening I forgot about at 2:00, 2:15. Yeah, come on. Let me see if I got speakers here. All right, guys, you're going to listen to Ham for 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna cut it off. I'll come back on at 3:30 or 4. Hang on a second. Stupid thing. I had it ready, but it always fades away.
Battery 40%. Connected to Bill's iPhone.
All right, so you have the voice here. You have the voice. Hang on. You have the voice. Go ahead. Start again.
Quickly, because I know William has to sign off.
Yeah.
I think the two Chinese names, GDC and ZJYL, are going to take off next week. So a couple of my friends are buying GDC. They think it's going to go next week. So I'm just passing on to what I know. Again, we own it higher, and we're sitting here waiting like you are. But again, the people that own it, I believe next week is going to start to take off on it. That's what I'm hearing. That's why I relayed it to you. TELO, if you're following that name, the quiet period ends on Monday. That means they'll start speaking about what the hell they do. We've heard stories that they're speaking or meeting with Amgen. That was supposedly last week. So I think that we'll start seeing some good news on that one. You can see that the stock gets to $9.25, and they keep offering it $9. From what I gathered, the people that are behind this thing know that the short selling is coming out of Canada. So people actually fighting back and watching it and doing what they have to do. I'll leave the other two names to the end. CELU announced a 10 for 1 for 10 reverse split. All right, so they just what I told you they were going to do. They did. The Dennis Neal, he owned this stock, and I told him why he lost his money. So it opened. I think it closed at 43 cents. So it's opening up at 4.30, and they knocked it down already. It's always. Every stock always has sellers. Finger Motion has nothing but sellers every day trying to hold it down. Every day. Same thing in GTII. I'll get to that in a minute. But a stock like CELU, the shareholders lost 10% of their holdings. That was the first volley into the reverse. If they knock it back down again, there'll be more reverses. Obviously, he has to maintain that dollar level or he's going to get kicked off the NASDAQ. And that CEO is a neurosurgeon, and he can't deal with the embarrassment of being kicked off the NASDAQ. As far as I'm concerned, the NASDAQ is complete fraud. So what's the difference? What exchange you're on? It doesn't make a difference. All right. Now we'll walk into GTII. GTII, I told you we're waiting for the company to do some sort of deal. I met with a couple of people that have presented deals to the company. I met with the Trento mining guys. Everyone's good people, and they have to sell their wares to the CEO. I can't help them with that, so that's their business. If they get one of these things done, I think that'll make it take off. Or we get the SEC, the Secret Service, the FBI, DOJ, someone to move and pick up the low-hanging fruit, which would be the Kramers and Alpine together here. These guys, obviously the proof from the NSCC about Alpine being short the stock. If anyone's on this call that speaks to the CEO of DBMM, that woman, DBMM, all right. If you could find out what bank Alpine used, I don't know what bank is behind Alpine. I've been curious to find out. I keep forgetting to ask. So if anyone who does speak with DBMM, the CEO, she's a very smart woman. She's the one that gave us that their prime broker was Alpine. We're just curious of what bank is behind Alpine. I didn't know. So if anyone speaks with her, I'll try to reach out myself. But that was a question a couple of people asked me about. So I talked about GTII. And last, I'll talk about Finger Motion. I rewatched the CEO's video again with William, and then the CEO did another interview. And he speaks right in the video about upcoming transactions. And he's very excited about something happening in the first quarter, which is now. So between that and the dividend, I'm looking for big things to happen here. These morons keep trying to sell it lower every day. It's just, I just spoke to a friend who adds every day. And you know what? He said it right. He goes, you know what? People that can't see it, let us scoop up all the cheap stock. And that's how professionals look at it. And I'm just trying to give you a heads up for what I see. And I do believe that this company is going to have an explosion shortly because they do have the fundamentals. They do have the money, very different than the other names. And I'm just going to compare Finger Motion to a stock that I've been following and reporting was Root, ROOT. They slaughtered their shareholders, did a big reverse. The stock went from 30 to $1. They reversed it back to 25, and then it drifted all the way back down to $6 or $7 for a while. The company came out with earnings. The revenue was bigger, and their loss was less. That was the news release. The stock has gone from 8 to 32, back up again. Now remember, a lot of shares were retired. 25% of the shares were retired. And so there's less shares out there again. But this is a stock that was, if you look at it now, my friend owns it. He probably owns it. His position, he paid 25 for it. It's probably worth $1.50 right now. So it's not a win for the people that invested in this company a couple of years ago. It's a win for the people that bought it the last 3 days. So for those who think this is a big winner, the poor bastards that bought the IPO got slaughtered, including my friend. So I'm just trying to show you Wall Street has a way of moving past the damage. And here it is. Oh, it's a winner now. Root's making it its comeback. After the reverse, the stock, your original position is probably worth $1.50, $2 tops, whatever it was from 25. So again, these things, this stock is turned because they lost less at revenue. So I look at it this way. The company went public, $7 billion market cap, and today the market cap is $400 million. So right away you can tell the devastation that's been here. But the company came out, went public, had their great idea, raised almost $800 million, and started building their business. Obviously, when you're starting to build a business, you don't walk in and say, okay, we opened our door, we made $1 billion in 3 minutes. It doesn't happen like that. Root has its growing pains, and basically the shorts took advantage of this company starting out, and they knew that this company was a startup, so they took advantage of it and slaughtered everybody in it before they got a chance to build and prove what they can do. Now they're showing that they can drive revenue, reduce costs, and the stock is taken off. So when you invest in an early stage company, be careful, because you just saw, or I just described to you what they did to Root. They do it to many others. But Root got destroyed, reversed, and now the company is now turning the corner after 2 years or 3 years, whatever. And now the company is going to drive revenue and actually become like a Snowflake or all these other companies that are in the same class as them. All right, so that's what happens. Finger motion reminds me of Root, because guess what? They started their business. They're growing their business. They have, the cell phone insurance business. They have the data business, this, that. It takes time to build out that technology. It takes time to get the clients. It takes time to drive the revenue. And guess that time is coming that time is coming up. And that's how I look at it, like a Root. Once the short folds, as you can see, they keep buying it. They can't stop. They have to keep covering. And that's what I expect to happen in Finger. I think it's going to be a carbon copy of Root without the reverse. That's what I see happening here. GTI is a completely different story. We have criminal shorts. The company needs to do a transaction to drive revenue or law enforcement. Finger Motion is driving the revenue, has the money, has the business plan. If we have anything from enforcement, we're off to the races, or they come in with some new technology and new deals that they supposedly are doing. We'll find out what they are. And they got the special dividend coming up also. So I don't know if I lost William.
I'm here. I'm listening. I'm listening.
Do you want me to recap anything? Did I miss anything? Any stocks?
One guy's asking, how high do you think GDC can go?
My friend said 50.
50, and then
So my friend said 50, get out at 25. What can I tell you?
not legal advice says you have a nice loin, pork loin or whatever. I was trying to make a joke. He wasn't being suggestive. I was trying to make it. He says hi to pork loin. There was one other question. Darn it. My brain isn't working. Just quickly.
So I went to a new health club that actually has a jacuzzi pool in it, but also has an the ice plunge, whatever you call plunge. And they said that's good for inflammation in your legs and your knees. So I actually tried it a little while ago. It's freezing cold when you go in there, I can tell you that. But I gave it a shot. As they say on Wall Street, take a shot. Lincoln did. That's what I did. I took a shot. I jumped into the cold.
Why don't you put your head in that ice? Maybe that would help.
I put my Coca-Cola in there, let it float.
How high will TLO go? TLO hits a new low.
TLO is interesting stock, only because we people we know actually know the guy that owns the whole float. So, I mean, it is interesting. And you can see from day one, these guys shorted the whole thing down. So the stock, they keep trying to hold it below 9.25, 9. You keep coming back with stock, coming back. It's coming out of Canada. So they're trying to maintain it, but against, let's see what the company has to say. The company actually has this technology they're working on to actually reignite your stem cells, to actually get your life going again. Your stem cells as you get older die off. So if they can recreate and make things happen again here, let's see where all the trials are being held. I'm told it's being held at the Johns Hopkins is doing it all. So it's pretty interesting that they're way down the road. Of course, fraud streets try to put them out. Anything that can help make you better and feel better and save your life, they want to kill. I find it disgusting, but that's what they're trying to do. TELOs is what, public 12 days, and they already tried to kill it? 12 days, and there's not even any news yet. So let's see what the company has to say. At that point, I can make a determination about what I feel, how high it's going to go. I do think it's going to be a monster, but anyone who's taking stem cells, who, we all going around trying to get stem cells to get healthy or get your knees healthy or your shoulder, whatever it may be. I heard great things about stem cells. It's expensive. It's not easy.
Maybe it'll save the elephants. They won't need ivory anymore for staying young.
I would get
or tiger blood or whatever. The question is, why aren't hedge funds jumping into these squeezes like Finger Motion and just buying the hell out of the stock and making it run?
It's like candid camera. They come when they come. That's just the way it is. A guy like Stevie Cohen, for example, if he was following it, okay, they would buy it at 10, 20, 30, because they're not afraid, because they know it's just numbers. And if it's going to 100, they don't put any capital in. They wait. These guys need to show returns all the time. So they kind of wait on these things. They come later. So I look at it, retail investors are getting a lesson on to be ahead of the curve. If you don't like to be ahead of the curve, then go wait and you can go buy Root. Okay? Because who's buying Root up at $30 when it was just $8 the other day? Right? It's almost 32, 33, went to 34. You got big players coming into the stock and they're squeezing the shorts from 20 to 30. That's what they're doing. When it was $9, no one gave a shit. Right? But all of a sudden, everybody wants it. Right? PANW, Nancy Pelosi's latest trick yesterday went from 306, it went to 320 today. Now it's selling off again. So if you buy the dips, sell the rips, you get to make money in these plays. But again, who's chasing it yesterday and today? People like me. They come later.
You can always date the dips.
Right, date the dips.
Ham is hilarious. Particularly on mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise.
Tell Ham to use castor oil for inflammation. He's been using it for his shoulder for his pain, and he has torn rotator cuffs.
That's a tough one.
That
is a tough one. So,
any court date for GTII criminals? No. Thank you for everything. Here's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to let you keep talking, and you can stop whenever you want. You guys can just interact with each other while I'm gone, and when I come back, I'll be back. That way you can keep going. But I've got to walk over to the Phillips.
Go do what you have to do. We'll check in later. Listen, I recapped every stock out there. I think the opportunities in our names are coming to the forefront now. And you pick your poison, what you want to do. I think the Chinese names are going to squeeze next week.
Okay. So then I should sign out.
Just write these things down. TELO, the quiet period ends on Monday.
Okay.
You don't need me to remind you. I'm looking at it the same way you are. finger motion. I think the events are coming up. GTII, we're waiting for the management to do something as far as getting a deal on the table to ignite this thing. And, what else I can't remember what else I'm talking about. CELU, obviously you can see with the reverse split and what else? Anyway, go.
All right. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. All right, guys. I'll answer this question and then I'm gonna go. And I'll sign out now and then I'll try to come on later. But I'm trying to get my shares of MMTLP, my last block, transferred for the fourth or fifth time I called today. And I got the exact same, well, I don't see that you requested it. Blah, 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 blah. So that's E-Trade. I think E-Trade's running out of shares. But I'm going to try my best to get those shares out. But to answer your question specifically, if you transfer there, you will be part of a settlement in the sense of, I'm not a lawyer, pain and suffering, penalties, those kind of things. I think you'll be part of a settlement with a dividend. Why? Because I think the main players will insist that it applies to all. Where I don't know that you'll be part of a settlement is the obligation of Wall Street was to give you those 2 days of trading, which they took away. Those aren't coming back and they shouldn't come back. Their other obligation was to give you shares. And if you get the shares, they don't owe you anything on that. So, but I would rather own the shares than own a chit that might end up in Peter Angelos's litigation cycle for the next 8 or 15 years. It has nothing to do with Peter Angelos, but he goes on and on and on. All right, I'm going to sign out, and we'll talk later on tonight. All the best to everyone, and greetings to Not Legal Advice.